Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about what glues you can use in your artwork, but more specifically what the different glues do and which glues you should use for your particular requirements. Hello, my name is Tracy Eastham. I'm an artist and owner of Art School by Subscription, which is my online art school devoted to all things concept, experimentation and creative connection. When it comes to using glues in artworks, there's lots of different options and it can be a bit bamboozling. They all do slightly different things. And we need to consider lots of different factors like longevity, like whether it's an archival glue or whether it's going to react with the materials that we're using. So in this video, I'm going to go through the main options and talk about which is right for you. The first glue I'm going to talk about is probably the most common, and that's your standard PVA glue. We're all familiar with PVA glue. It comes in big tubs like this. The pros of using PVA glue are that it's quite cheap and it's readily accessible. But the cons are that it's a liquid glue, it's quite liquidy. For that reason, if you use a little bit too much, it can wrinkle thinner or more delicate papers. So you can get that sort of wrinkled, mottled effect, which isn't good. But it's a flexible glue. It's a general good all-rounder, and it also doubles up as a bit of a sealant as well. The best thing about PVA is that it's flexible as it dries. So say if you were applying it onto a slightly flexible surface like fabric or canvas, it's not going to crack because even when it's dry, it stays quite flexible. The problem with PVA glue is that there's lots of variety with the quality that you get. You can get standard school PVA, which is a little bit more watered down, but you can get more expensive artist quality PVA. Some PVA glues might yellow with time, but on the whole, I say it's a good all-rounder. So the next most common one I'd say is your standard glue stick. So whereas PVA wasn't good with the thin, delicate papers because it's too liquidy, PVA glue is good with very thin papers. So if you're applying tissue paper, for example, and you don't want it to wrinkle up, Pritt stick or glue sticks are probably best for that. In terms of longevity, though, they're not great. So they tend to lose their adhesiveness over time. So if you're making an artwork that's, say, going to be framed and going someone's wall, a standard glue stick might not be the best for that, but it is archival quality, which means that it's not going to yellow over time. So an often overlooked glue or adhesive for artworks is a paint medium, so acrylic paint mediums. I've got a gloss medium here, I've got a Liquitex matte medium, and I've also got a Galleria matte medium. You can get satin and you can get extra thick mediums as well. These glues are perfect if you are doing a mixed media acrylic painting. So if you're working on a canvas or on a canvas board or something and you're using acrylic paint, but you want to glue in other materials like papers or strips of fabric or even like sticks and things, any sort of mixed media material into your acrylic painting, then acrylic mediums are the best option over things like PVA because they use the same binding materials as the paint. So they glue in, they bed in really well. They don't react with the acrylic paints in a negative way at all. So you can just apply it straight off as glue, or you could mix your acrylic paint colors into the medium to make the medium colored basically and apply it like that. And as it dries, it's going to form a really good flexible bond with your mixed media elements. I mean, you can technically use just paint as a glue itself. You can apply wet acrylic paint and attach things to it whilst it's still wet, and that will effectively glue. But this is good because it gives a more unified effect. And it also acts as a nice sealant. So you can glue underneath the material and also over the top to make sure you've got that really good bond to the surface. Another popular one is Mod Podge, which you see in all art shops. This is a water-based sealer, glue and finisher, so it's really good for if you're doing crafty projects like collage and decoupage, for example, because you can glue it, again, like the mediums, you can glue it underneath the material, but you can also apply it over the top to give a clear sealant. But it's important to know that Mod Podge is not archival quality, which means that over time it could yellow, and I mean over quite a long time, but over time it could yellow. And some people report that it stays a little bit tacky, so it doesn't sort of dry to a really hard finish, which you might want. So if it may, for example, over time attract dust onto the surface. But the main problem is with Mod Podge is that it's not archival, so there's a good chance of it yellowing over time. Another adhesive that you can use is a spray adhesive. So in some of my work where I was using very thin and large sheets of paper, I used to prefer spray glue because it didn't wrinkle the paper. Even though I was using very thin, quite low quality papers, it wouldn't wrinkle. Because it's a spray, you get a really nice even distribution of glue on the reverse of the paper, and it doesn't wrinkle it up because it's not liquidy. And it's a good bond as well. And you can even get some spray mounts which are repositionable, so it gives you that extra working time to move things around. So it's great for collage. There's lots of downsides to spray mount, so it's a bit toxic. You've got to use it in a very aerated space. There's lots of overspray, so if you're working on little pieces of collage, it's really difficult to work with because it sprays everywhere. I found that it can stay a bit tacky as well, even hours after you've applied it. I guess that comes with the repositional element. You want to be able to reposition it, but you also want it to dry. So it can stay a bit tacky over time. On the whole, I'd say it's good for mounting. So when you're mounting artwork in a frame, it can be really good for that. And also bookbinding as well. It can be quite good to get that really consistent, even spread of glue when you don't want any edges flaying up. So it's quite good for that. A little quick tip with the spray mount glue is that over time the glue will harden in the spray nozzle at the top. So a little quick tip is that after you've finished spraying, turn the tin upside down and spray it like that, upside down, which will get rid of any of the lingering glue in the nozzle and clear it out. So there's basically no glue in there now, and that when you come to use it again in a few weeks or a few months, it won't all be glued up and you can start gluing straight away. Going a bit heavier now with our use of glue, we've got hot glue gun. So hot glue guns are lots of fun, and they are good because you get that instant bond between pretty much any material. So if you're making more like assemblage type artworks where you're wanting to affix heavier objects or bigger objects onto the surface of a canvas or a board, like lumps of wood, for example, then a hot glue gun can be really useful for that. The glue that you typically get with hot glue guns is not archival, so again might yellow over time, might be a bit brittle over time as well, but can be a really good option when we're fixed. Like say if you wanted to put sticks and stones onto a canvas, things quite heavy like that, without the things that don't have smooth surfaces, a hot glue gun can be really good for that. So along with the heavier use of objects, if you're going hardcore heavy mixed media with your artwork and you're affixing really big chunky heavy things, yes, you can go for hot glue guns. You can also go for epoxy resins, which is where you're mixing like a two-part glue system. That is sort of your top level heavy use industrial style glue. which you can use in your artwork. So a few other less common glues that you can use in your artwork are wheat paste. So this is something that you have to make up yourself, and you have to make it fresh each time. And you also have to make it right. You know, it's a bit tricky to make, but it's a really nice natural, non-toxic glue. It's really good for very delicate papers. Wheat paste can be really good use for delicate papers, but like I say, it's a bit faffy. If you make it right, it's archival, but it can lean towards a yellowing consistency over time if you don't make it quite right. So just be careful with that one. Another specialist glue I've got here, which you probably won't need to use very often at all, is a gold size. So if you're doing any gold leaf or metal leafing in your artwork, you can use PVA, you can use acrylic mediums to attach the gold leaf, but the proper glue to use is actually called size. It's called gold size, S-I-Z-E. You can buy it at most art shops. It's a low adhesive. It's not a very strong adhesive, but it's more than enough for gold leaf because it's so delicate. You use it in a particular way where it's very liquidy and quite thin, but you apply it in thin layers. You can leave it for about 10 seconds and then apply the gold leaf or metal leaf to it, and then leave it to dry. So that's another specialist adhesive which you might want to invest in. Super glue is a very familiar glue, but it's not one I recommend for art at all. Even if you're going sort of heavy use with objects, I would never recommend super glue because it's so brittle over time in particular. And as artists, we often use flexible surfaces in our artwork: canvas, linens, fabrics. So over time, super glue is just going to crack and it's going to fail reasonably quickly with any sort of form of movement. So I'd avoid super glue completely. That's my overview of the different glues that you can use in your artwork. So you might have heard me talk about archival a few times in that little video. You might be thinking, what is archival? Archival means that it refers to the longevity of an artwork and the robustness of an artwork over time. If we think of an archive, that's a collection of artworks from historical artworks. It's a collection of artworks over a period of time. And an archive seeks to protect and look after those artworks and ensure their survival for future viewers. So we want our materials to be archival, which means that they're going to be stable. They're going to stay as they are over time. Archival glues, consequently, need to be pH neutral or slightly alkaline. They need to be non-yellowing. They need to be flexible because, like I've said, we tend to move our artworks quite a lot and they tend to be on quite flexible surfaces. And above all, they need to be stable, so not change over time. Hence why I don't recommend super glue, because that goes increasingly brittle over time. A quick tip before I finish my video is that I've referred to sticking objects within a painting or on top of a painting, but you might want to start a painting with applying objects with glue on a surface. So you might want to, for example, put a collage background on a canvas. So you might want to apply glue to the surface of the canvas. In that instance, you need to make sure that the surface is as smooth as possible so that the glue will adhere to the surface in the most strong way. If you're buying a shop-bought canvas, that will probably be pre-sanded and already quite smooth. But if you've primed your own canvas, or even if you've put a base coat colour, it's a good idea to give it a quick sand before you apply the base layer of glue so that it's got a good smooth surface to adhere to. I'm going to finish this video by just saying that conceptually, glues are related to the materiality of an artwork. It's not necessarily something that we need to hide, but we need to combine with the very conceptual materiality of the artwork. So choosing the correct glue, depending on the concept or the materiality of your artwork, is important for the overall aesthetics and underlining concept of your work. It's also a process-led material, so it warrants some experimentation and some play. Most of these glues are fairly inexpensive, so open yourself up to playing with these materials and seeing which works best. A lot of them last a long time in their tubs, you know, so you can collect a good range of glues to experiment with in your studio practice and see which one fits you and your artwork the best. So thank you for watching my video. I hope you found that useful, but let me know in the comments below, is there a particular material or surface that you struggle to adhesive together? Have you not found the right glue for your particular artwork? Let me know what you struggle with below and I'll reply. Thanks for watching, and make sure you give me a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos.